Munn v. Illinois developed as a result of the Illinois legislators responding in 1871 to the National Grange, which was an association of farmers setting maximum rates that private companies could charge for the storage and transport of agricultural products. Grain elevator companies were charging their customers for purchases in cities with populations in excess of 100,000 people. The one problem with the population rules, however, was that it limited this law to only Chicago. This angered the people of Chicago. The customers that were charged were mainly farmers. These farmers felt they were getting ripped off and were concerned with these fees. Customers were enraged and decided that these charging fees were going against Congress's rights to regulate commerce. They also felt that the fees were against private property rights under the due process of the 14th Amendment. The decision in Munn v. Illinois primarily focused on personal property rights. The argument for violating regulation of commerce was proved invalid in the case. The Wabash case was also popularly known as Wabash, St. Louis, and Pacific Railroad Company v. Illinois. The case declared an Illinois law invalid. This Illinois law prohibited long and short haul clauses in transportation contracts as an infringement on the exclusive powers of Congress granted by the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. The Wabash case declared that the states had no right and no power to regulate railroads' rates or interstate shipments. Congress believed that the states would put a burden on commerce and therefore could not govern interstate transportation. One important result of this case was the creation of the Interstate Commerce Commission. In 1887, the Interstate Commerce Commission was created to oversee the conduct of this railroad industry. Increasing public demand for regulation of these railroads led to this. With this creation, railroads became the very first industry subject to federal regulation and inspection. The Interstate Commerce Commission was a 5-member board of enforcement that addressed the problems of monopolies. The Granger Laws, another action that dealt with railroad regulation, set and authorized railroad rates at a state level. These laws established state and railroad commissions for administering new legislation. The Granger Laws varied from state to state, but the main objective was to outlaw widespread abuses by railroads and establish maximum rates and create regulatory agencies to administer and enforce laws. These laws were heavily fought against by railroad corporations. Soon enough, railroads were being used for public transportation, and this sparked the idea for fees and rates.
So, what I think the problem was that the railroad companies, they wanted a lot of money, and the people that they just didn't have the money, and Congress was like, no, you cannot do that. We have to put a limit on this. We are appalled.
The United States was quickly building harsh relationships between the people and the big-name businesses. Major corporations were pushing the common man to his limits by creating unfair agreements that were forced upon the people. In 1890, the most significant of the United States antitrust laws was passed, the Sherman Antitrust Act. This law applied to all companies dealing in or with the United States. The act outlawed the use of trusts and prohibited illegal monopolies. Trusts are relationships between businesses that entered into anti-competitive contracts to gain market dominance. Big-name businesses were beginning the trend of unfair advantages over competitors, buying out competitors, long-term agreements with customers, and forcing customers to purchase unwanted products slowly burned the fuel between the American people. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 gave Congress the power to prevent firms from merging with other firms to create monopolies. A monopoly is the event in which a company has an exclusive dominance over a specific division in the marketplace. In modern times, an example of a monopoly would be Coke and Pepsi products simply because they own a majority of the soft drink industry. The momentum of arguments within America did not stop with the common man. It poisoned the labor unions working for the businesses as well. Strikes began to break out across the country, causing chaos and violence within the country, all fighting for what they believed was owed to them in return for their hard work and dedication to the big-name companies. Railroads were an example of major companies in the late 1800s. George Pullman, born on March 3, 1831, quickly grew up to be a major business icon in numerous industries. His ideas of sleeping cars led to the creation of the Pullman Palace Car Company, founded in 1867. The business was an instant success, bringing in major profit for George Pullman, but his harsh treatment of his employees quickly led to his downfall. His wrong decisions with his workers changed the operation of the company in an opposite direction. Pullman produced a surplus in palace cars, eventually leading to a significant downfall in profit. This drop in profit forced George Pullman to cut his workers' wages by 25% and drop up to 1/3 of his employees.
The American Railroad Union, they was just fighting for what they thought was right, and they want that money, and they right, you know what I'm saying? How you gonna act like that, and then how you gonna take that money like that? Like, they gonna be working for you and you gonna cut that stuff? They cut their wages by 20 to 30%. I would knock his out.
The employees quickly became agitated with Pullman's decisions, joining the American Railroad Union. The ARU was an organization in which boycotts and strikes were held for the benefit of the workers. The joining of the ARU sparked the fuse for the Pullman strike. The strike boycotted the use of Pullman cars, destroying the company's profit. Despite the economic downfall, workers continued to quit their jobs and join the American Railroad Union. Former Pullman employees began to violently lash out on the railroads, causing damage to them and creating uncontrollable situations. On June 28, 1894, President Cleveland sent over 12,000 federal troops to control the situation. This decision caused a boost in violence to occur within the United States of America.
So, the companies, once again, are screwing the American people. Now they're cutting their wages so they can make money, and now people are pissed.
The leader of the ARU, Eugene V. Debs, urged the railroad workers to unite with each other, creating the ultimate power to defeat the company's unfair decisions. He organized a boycott in which railroads around the nation stopped the use of Pullman cars. Regardless of how greatly they were needed, courts quickly made the strikes and trespassing on railroad property illegal to prevent from further abuse. Debs was arrested, creating a leaderless union and ultimately leading to the defeat of the ARU through federal control. Ignoring the dangers and possible consequences, workers continued their strikes. A writer by the name of Hamlin Garland described the working conditions at the Carnegie Steel Company's Homestead plant, located in Pennsylvania.
Everywhere, groups of pale, lean men slouched in faded garments, grimy with the soot and grease of the mills. A roar as of 100 lions, thunder as of cannons, jarring clang of fallen iron.
Ignoring the dangers and possible consequences, on June 19, 1892, the company president Henry Clay Frick announced to the workers that their wages would be cut. The steelworkers immediately established the Homestead strike. Frick hired guards to work around the plant to protect it from strikers so the plant could still operate. A battle occurred on the grounds of the Carnegie Steel Company's Homestead plant, leaving 3 guards and 9 workers dead. The plant had been completely shut down until National Guard had arrived on July 12. The strike continued for another 4 months until the strikers lost support and lost the battle to the company. Collective bargaining also played a large part in the forming of unions. During a collective bargaining negotiation period, workers approached the employer and attempted to negotiate a contract which both sides could agree on. One of the largest unions was the Knights of Labor. Founded by Uriah Smith Stevens, the Knights of Labor were a secretive national organization that was formed in Philadelphia in 1869 and accepted all workers. The Knights sought to bring any unskilled workers together and form diverse industries to become a single working class by leading nonviolent boycotts in order to achieve their goals. Following the downfall of the Knights of Labor, the American Federation of Labor was formed. Led by Samuel Gompers, the AFL consisted of only skilled white men and became the largest labor organization. The goals of the AFL were to achieve shorter workdays and higher wages. The International Ladies Garment Workers Union was established in 1900 by Jewish and Italian immigrants who were mostly female. They fought for better working conditions for women. They wanted shorter working hours and higher wages, as well as benefits such as healthcare, cooperative housing, pension funds, and educational and cultural activities. Immigrants and blacks were often targets of resentment because they were used as strikebreakers, also known as scabs. During the Homestead strike, the company president, Henry Clay Frick, hired the scabs to work at the plant while it was under attack by former workers. The House Un-American Activities Committee, otherwise known as the HUAC, began investigating communist influence in the movie industry in 1947. The committee believed communists were sneaking propaganda into films. The HUAC subpoenaed 43 witnesses from the movie industry. Some witnesses agreed that communists had infiltrated the film industry, while 10 other witnesses refused because they believed the hearings were unconstitutional. These 10 witnesses were known as the Hollywood 10 and were sent to prison because they refused to answer questions. In response to these hearings, the blacklist was created. The blacklist was a list of approximately 500 actors, writers, producers, and directors who were not permitted to work on Hollywood films because of their alleged communist connections. Blacklisting banned Hollywood executives and ruined careers of those in the movie industry because they could no longer work. In 1899, the Team Drivers International Union was founded. Later renamed the Teamsters Union, it grew into the largest union in the nation. In response to the growing strengths of these groups, and because of the lobbyist demands, Congress enacted the Erdman Arbitration Act in 1898. This law arranged for government mediation in railroad labor disputes and prohibited the use of yellow dog contracts by the railroads. As a condition of employment, a yellow dog contract required a worker to agree not to join a union.
I would knock his out.